All right, so this is breaking news, so let's just jump right into it. Um, Israel knew about Hamas's attack on October 7th for more than a year. So let's watch.
Warned about Hamas's intentions to start a war ahead of the deadly October 7th attacks. Quote, Israeli officials obtained Hamas's battle plan for the October 7th terrorist attack more than a year before it happened, documents, emails, and interviews show. But Israeli military and intelligence officials dismissed the plan as aspirational, considering it too difficult for Hamas to carry out. The approximately 40-page document, which the Israeli authorities codenamed Jericho Wall, outlined point by point exactly the kind of devastating invasion that led to the deaths of about 1,200 people. According to one intelligence analyst in Israel, this was not merely a plan for an attack. Quote, it is a plan designed to start a war. Ben Rhodes served as Deputy National Security Advisor to President Barack Obama, and he joins me now.
Okay, so I recommend you guys watch this entire video, but there's plenty of them out there. Any of them are fine. Um, Now, he's saying that, basically implying that Israel underestimated Hamas, but it is much more sinister than that. But before we get into that, I want to jump ahead to something interesting that he talks about right here. So let's watch this.
Its own version of a failure. The thing that people have to bear in mind here is that not only was there not an action taken to disrupt this, but in fact, on October 7th, what had happened is the IDF that would normally be at that border had been redirected up to the West Bank because they were busy protecting settlers, Israeli settlers who were engaging, often initiating clashes with Palestinians. So actually, the border wasn't even at the normal status quo of security, it was less. And that's the policy failure to redirect those resources up to the West Bank.
Okay, so if you watched my previous video, this might sound familiar. So what is he saying here? He's saying, where was the IDF when Hamas staged their October 7th attack? And he's saying that the IDF largely was redirected to the West Bank, away from Gaza's border. Now, if you remember, if you watched my video, Israel created and funded Hamas, that's actually exactly what I said. So let's watch my video now. This was made a month ago, by the way. So I'm going to read this. The question Israelis are all asking is, where were the soldiers yesterday? Why was the IDF seemingly absent while hundreds of Israelis were slaughtered in their homes and on the streets? The unfortunate truth is that they were preoccupied in the West Bank. We send soldiers to secure settler incursions into the Palestinian city of Nablus, to chase Palestinian children, in Hebron, to protect settlers as they carry out pogroms. Settlers demand that Palestinian flags removed from the streets of Hura. Soldiers are sent to do it. Our country decided decades ago that it's willing to forfeit the security of its citizens in our towns and cities in favor of maintaining control over an occupied civilian population of millions, all for the sake of a settler messianic agenda. The idea that we can manage the conflict without ever having solved it is once again collapsing before our eyes. It held up until now because only few dared to challenge it. These heartbreaking events could change that. They must, for all of us between the river and the sea. Okay, so this was intentionally done. That Israel intentionally relocated IDF soldiers away from Gaza to the West Bank to assist settlers, what I call illegal immigrants, creating illegal settlements in the West Bank to protect them from Palestinians in the West Bank, which made the border around Gaza weaker. Now, I'm going to use a very overused phrase that I think is used in situations where it's not appropriate at all. But there is an elephant in the room that MSNBC is not acknowledging, and it needs to be acknowledged. And that is that Israel not only knew that this attack was going to happen, but intentionally allowed it to happen in order to establish a casus belli for war with the intention of eventually annexing Gaza, or at least part of it, which appears to be the northern part at the very least. That is what they want to do. Now, Bibi Netanyahu has gone on the record saying that any investigation into October 7th can only be done after the war has been won. So his agenda is that he wants to first defeat Hamas, annex Gaza, or at least part of it, and then he'll look like a hero to the Israelis. And so they'll forgive him for all the bad things that he did before. Because, by the way, the Israeli people were unbelievably angry at him before because he was trying to subvert the court system and have complete control over the courts. And there were mass protests in Israel against that. And he was on his way out. You know, he was facing numerous corruption charges. So this was his gambit, his Xanatos gambit, in order to stay in power. So he intentionally allowed Hamas to attack so that he can annex Gaza and then look like a hero to the Israeli people. That's what his plan was. Now, the way that American mainstream media wants to spin this is they want to make it look like Bibi Netanyahu is unbelievably incompetent, which he is. Now, the reason why they want to spin it in that way is because these mainstream media outlets like MSNBC, CNN, and the New York Times, which is the one that revealed this information, all of these things have major Zionist influence. There are Zionists working at these places that have profound influence and are painting a pro-Israeli narrative throughout this entire conflict. However, despite that, they are not Bibi Netanyahu supporters. They don't like Bibi Netanyahu. Okay, a lot of Israelis don't, but those Israelis are still Zionists, so they don't like how Bibi has handled the situation. So they want to make Bibi look incompetent rather than truly sinister, which would make him a traitor. Okay, but it would implicate more than just Bibi because his entire party, Likud, which remember in my previous video, I revealed that the Likud party is actually a Jewish terrorist organization that simply relabeled itself. Okay, that was Irgun, founded, and the leader of Irgun was Menachem Begin, and he was the founder of the Likud party. So it was just a relabeling of it. Okay, so these are terrorists, and so what do terrorists do? They murder people. They murder innocent civilians. But not only that, they have no problem murdering their own people in order to attain political objectives. So they had no problem with Hamas murdering Israelis. You know. In fact, and I need to make a video about this later, it turns out that the IDF itself were the ones primarily responsible for killing the vast majority of Israeli civilians on October 7th. Okay? Hamas primarily killed IDF soldiers, legitimate military targets. The ones who were responsible for killing the most Israeli civilians were actually the IDF themselves. Okay? But that's a separate issue. We're going to talk about that in another video. But I just wanted to quickly let you guys know what was really going on here, because Western mainstream media, they want to spin this a certain way, because even though they're Zionists, and they are, and they're pro-Israel, they don't like Bibi Netanyahu. They want him to go. And they have not been pleased with how this war has been going, because this war has been going horribly for Israel. Okay? They not People are saying that they have lost the propaganda war, the information war, and they have, but they're losing the ground war as well. They've been performing horribly against Hamas. And this temporary pause in the fighting, the timing is not a coincidence. Okay? This information, New York Times has been sitting on this information for quite some time, and they have timed it precisely right on the eve of when the pause in the fighting is supposed to end. They timed that precisely to reveal this, to instigate the gears in order to effect change, because they want Netanyahu out. And on that point, I can at least agree. Anyway, that's it for now. See you guys later.